Oh, hello, everybody. Do you have your tickets? Do you have your tickets to the show? Well, you don't need tickets. Just come on up. Just come inside the treehouse. Your host is right over there. Your host will talk to you probably for the entire time you are here. And without further ado, hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of My Spooky Treehouse. My name is John, and I will be your host every single episode as we talk about all the things swirling inside this spooky treehouse-sized head of mine. These topics have a crazy wide range, dealing with everything from 90s Nickelodeon to personal topics such as mental health and reflecting on life goals and achievements. I want to make this a safe space for myself and for you, the guest. You are a guest in my treehouse, so I want to tell you that it is open to everybody, but sometimes it's known to get a little bit spooky. Do you see what I mean? I've been part of podcasts before. For entertainment's sake, the Dark Alley podcast, and most recently, the Who Loves Orange podcast's The Podcast. But this will mark the very first time I'll be hosting one by myself. If you know me IRL, then you know I can get kind of scatterbrained. So given that I will tell you right now that the episode topics will be very varied and ranny random in the sensey sense that today we'll be talking about the story of Rugrat, which is about my personal journey into the world of DIY rap music. That's do-it-yourself rap music for anybody who needs help in on these terms. But next episode could be about anything, from diving into the complexity of the character that is Prince Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Or it could be an episode raising awareness for a real-life missing person. You just never know. Also, I'm going to have guests on, which will make for very interesting interviews, giving insights from people other than, well, you know, your boy. Podcasters. So I could very well reach out to any of them for some pointers, but I think I'm going to give this a whirl on my own and see how it goes. That being said, the treehouse is very much in its infancy stage, so if the episodes are a little shaky to start, things will get better as we go along. Hey, I'm learning here! Something that might be a mainstay, haven't decided yet, of the Spooky Treehouse is that we're going to have commercial breaks. I know, commercial breaks. Ugh. But no, it's not like the typical kinds of like ads and sponsorships you get on regular podcasts. No.
Lol.
These commercial breaks, you'll find out. We're going to have one coming up here pretty soon before we get to the main part of the episode. So just stay tuned for that. The whole point of this show is just so I can have a space that's all my own and I can do whatever I want in it. I've always wanted a treehouse too. I've always thought that the treehouse from the Recess movie was treely cool, as well as the one from the movie Jack with Robin Williams. And even the treehouse in Drake and Josh was turning out to be pretty sweet until Drake forgot to saw out a door and trapped them inside it for the whole entire episode. But anyway, I think that's enough of an introduction. Right now, I want to do a lot of show, don't tell, you know? And with that out of the way, grab some hot chocolate, a handful of Scooby snacks, and fix yourself a spot inside My Spooky Treehouse. The craziest thing just happened to me. I swear. I was sitting outside. It's about 1 in the morning. I was sitting outside listening to my new Bob Marley CD. And I look up. I was sitting I have a Carolina Panthers lawn chair. Sitting in my Panthers lawn chair, I look up, and there's these eyes looking at me, maybe from like 10 to 15 feet away from me. And I instantly notice that it's like a big shape. It's like either like a small wolf, which I'm really hoping it's not, or a really big fox, which maybe that's it. But so I turn my flashlight on, right? And I stand up. And it backs up, and I grab my Mountain Dew, and I back up slowly to the house with the flashlight facing it, and I wait about 5 minutes, and then I go back for my chair. The wolf fox was right 10 feet, probably it was a little closer to the chair than it was last time, and I noticed it when I got to the chair. I looked up, and there it was. It's pitch black outside, so like, you know, there's no I can't see anything. So I look up, and there he was. And so I get the lawn chair, I put my hand on the back of it, and then I stamp it into the ground, like bam, bam. Just kind of make a noise, and it scared it off. So I was able to get back to the house, and I did not get eaten by wolf foxes tonight. And hopefully that doesn't happen again, because that was scary. And now I'm in my car. It's 1:35 a.m. And now I feel like I'm in like a Jurassic Park movie where there's like raptors circling my car. But anyway, okay, so the Spooky Treehouse series it's not necessarily going to be a spooky podcast, but I think that story qualifies as spooky-ish. So back to the show. Okay, everybody, take your seats, sit down. Is everybody settled in? Get settled. Thank you.
This story is about a wee lad who just wanted to make music. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Whoa there, me. Wrong story. This is the story of me becoming Rugrat and my journey with it for the last 13 years or so. I grew up in North Carolina with my mom and my sister from when I was around 3 to about 9 years old. And one thing that was always present in my life was music. Before I was even born, my mom and pop would go to Grateful Dead shows and sell tie-dyes that they'd make in order to just get by. They had a deep love of the music too, as well as a deep love of, vibes. My mom's favorite artists to listen to were Stevie Nicks as well as the rest of Fleetwood Mac, but mostly Stevie. Elton John, Madonna, and any type of upbeat Christian music that makes you want to get up and dance and sing.
And boogie.
A significant memory I have, it was 1997, I think, and I was about 8 years old when I saw Men in Black for the first time. I watched it on VHS at the time, and at the end of the movie, before the end credits, I remember there being a music video for the MIB theme song that Will Smith made. It had Will Smith dancing alongside aliens from the movie, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. I'd watch it over and over again. It was a rap song, albeit a rather poppy rap song, but something about it resonated with me. My memories at 8 years old aren't all the way there, or probably even very accurate, but I remember shortly after that I owned my first rap CD, Big Willie Style by Will Smith, and right there at track 16 is the theme song to Men in Black. I played the same 4 or 5 songs from that album to death. As the radio songs were the only songs I really wanted to hear, hey, I was 8. It wasn't long before my interest in hip-hop grew, and I ended up discovering new artists to explore, like Nelly and Bone Thugs and Harmony. By high school, I was doing deep dives on artists like Tupac, Ice Cube, Eminem, Lupe Fiasco, Lil Jon, Ludacris, and that brand new Kanye/Jay-Z duo. And even artists like Akon and the Yin Yang Twins, LOL. I've always had music around me in some way, dating back to before I was even born. I owe that to my mom and the people she grew up around, for if things were different, I would have undoubtedly been brought up in some other way, and most likely, Rugrat would have never even been born. Fast forward. The year was 2010, and I was doing my best attempt at hobby hopping. Froggy style. The only thing really that similar between hobby hopping and bar hopping, Froggy style, would be my blurred vision and figuring out where and how to take my next step. To be completely honest, I can't remember many of the hobbies I tried out during that time, but I do remember being into something new almost weekly. Something I stuck with for a good bit there was making YouTube videos. I was actually really good at it, and I had a lot of fun too. The problem was, to be successful on YouTube, and really anything like that, you need to be super consistent. I was enrolled at college at the time and had a full-time job. And even though I was awarded a YouTube medal for being the number 3 top subscribed comedian on YouTube for that week, one time, I knew it wasn't sustainable. I knew I had to find something else to fill that creative void I felt. And that idea came to me one day while working a shift at Domino's. I remember working with this kid at the time. Shout out to Joker. Although I'm pretty sure he has a new stage name now. But I remember he always went on about being a rapper and how he's the best. I remember wanting to make my own rap as a response to his constant chatter, as a joke. And what I ended up making felt good, like really good. I made a few songs that nobody ever heard, back before I didn't even know how to flow over a beat. But before long, I was making my own little version of rap music. Back in 2010, my friend gave me this CD. It was a one of those ones that you would burn. On the top of it, it said MC Chris. I ignored the CD for a while because that's just kind of what I do. Somebody gives me something and you put it to the side. I listened to it eventually. I think he might have made me listen to it. But before too long, we ended up going to see him in concert up in Baltimore. Not only did I thoroughly enjoy his set, I was also introduced to MC Lars and Schaefer the Dark Lord that night. What was so significant about that concert is what it awoke in me. What was first thought of as a joke, something silly to do, because who am I kidding? I could never be a rapper. Look at me. Look at my interests. Look at my lifestyle. None of these things are supposed to add up and equal a rapper. At least nothing like H to the Izzo or Kick Push. But seeing MC Chris, MC Lars, and Schaefer made me realize that if you love something enough, then what's stopping you? Those guys simply do not fit that traditional rapper image. And I'm not sure if it was while they were on stage doing the Bruce Campbell, or if it was during my drive home that night, reflecting on it all. But I remember distinctly telling myself, if those guys can do it, I can too, man. I can do that too. I ultimately combined my love of rap music, my passion for writing, and even pulled from a cartoon I grew up watching fondly, and Rugrat was born. I had a couple of names that ended up not working before I ended up landing on Rugrat at the end. Those names were The Famous Rapper and Yellow Jacket. Rugrat just felt right. I had no idea Yellow Wolf existed at the time, so I'm happy my name wasn't too similar to his. All of this was in the fall time, and specifically in September 2010. I really wanted to make a Halloween-themed record, titled Rugrat Presents The Curse 2010. I was just excited to be making something. I guess I figured out my new hobby, huh? I told myself I'm going to stick with this one, gosh darn you. And when it comes to something I'm excited for, and it's something I know I can do, I want to act and make it happen right away. So I got to work and made a few Halloween-themed songs, all of which are gone forever, on a hard drive, in a galaxy far, far away. Super sad. They weren't any good, like at all. The world had a classic case of addition by subtraction.
I don't know, maybe I manifested it. Last week I was talking with a friend about what if like mole people just dug themselves out of the ground, like right in front of me, right on the hill there, from the grass. I'd be like, yo, you need to turn yourself back around, get back in that hole. I don't want no trouble. And it looked at me and said, wow, I must have took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. And it jumped right back in like a little tornado. And it kind of, dug itself back in and filled itself, the hole kind of filled itself back up. And the earth remained the way it was before. And now I think that I summoned creatures from under the soil. Yeah.
The end of October was nearing, meaning Halloween was right around the corner, and The Curse 2010 was nearing completion, but none of it was really any good. So I decided to cancel it and take my time on a brand new one. One that has a better chance at being good because it won't be as rushed. The first song I made for this new album was a remix to one of the songs I wrote for The Curse. Vamp Girl, a song about going on a date only to realize your date is a vampire. I made a new beat for it using Fruity Loops, reworked the lyrics, and Vamp Girl Remix was born. I made 4 other songs, and my first album, Demon Llama, was completed. People didn't really like Demon Llama. They kinda hated it, actually. I can see why, but I'm very proud of it because it was my first album. That was like the first time I really tried to make music, so it's holding a special place in my heart. I wrote and produced it all by myself too. I can see where people were coming from, but it lit something in me that made me need to prove myself. I've listened to rap nearly my whole life, and I've always been praised for my writing from my peers. I just wasn't used to getting so much negative feedback from literally everywhere. That's when I decided to call up my friend Spencer, aka Spence the Prince, shout out, who was and still is a respected artist in the DMV. The song we made was called Fresh Air, and that's a good metaphor for what I was trying to do with Demon Llama, which was giving listeners a breath of fresh air with some new style rap. After Fresh Air dropped, I had a few local rappers reach out to me to give me props, and even a few classmates from college reached out as they'd seen me post about it on Facebook. I was off to the races. I was just excited for people to hear more of that fresh air energy. I ended up opening up about my personal life a bit on album 2, and it made me feel more in control about my own narrative, almost like a form of therapy. Having this newfound power felt different in ways. Like for the first time in my life, I felt like I had control of something. Not really a feeling I'm used to, even today. Somebody that changed my life for the better was Jared Yaw.
AKA Upwards. He's a beast, man.
Shout out, dude. We actually met by me sliding into his DMs, asking if he would be interested in making a song with me. I remember we sent a few messages over Twitter, and he really liked Fresh Air and this other new song I made called Silhouette. He said he could feel the emotion in my words and in the way I delivered my vocals. And because of that, he could tell I put real energy and passion into it. He asked for my phone number, and before I knew it, we were talking on the phone about music and rap and life for like 2 hours that same night. We ended up making a song called Ripped Open, which tells the tale of me writing a letter to my estranged pop and then him responding. Jared played the role of my pop perfectly. That song has always been special to me because of the content and what the making of it did for my creative future. It also started me and Jared's friendship, and that's something I'll always value. It was 2012 and my second album, Ripped Open, was out, and I was just starting to get the feedback I was looking for since the beginning. To be fair, I wasn't initially seeking out that feedback, that approval, but I felt like it was something I needed after that one body of work was so criticized. I got it with Ripped Open, and I loved the way it felt. I doubled down on my next album, Rugrat X, after I received a Facebook message by a producer from Scotland, asking me if I'd like to check out any of the beats he's made. I liked a few, and after some messages back and forth, we decided to link up and make a full album together. He was instrumental with the instrumentals. Pun completely intended, and that made my entire vision come to life. I'd always wanted to make an album that looped the ending back to the beginning, and he made that happen for me. He also made each song lead into the next, making the album one continuous, never-ending loop of sound. I owe Sphere 10 a big shout out right here because, man, you killed it 11 years ago when I sent you all those vocal files. Shout out to Sphere 10. Overall, though, I consider Rugrat X to be my weakest album in terms of vision. It sounds really great, but there isn't really any content. I was just too eager to rap that I didn't take the time to flesh out those raps with anything that much deeper than what it was. And what it was just rhyming and rapping for the sake of it, looping the album for the sake of it. If I had the chance to go back in with Sphere 10 and do a Rugrat Y, I know we'd make something truly astounding. Side note, it was during this time when I met my good friend Douglas, who went on to become Prophet Ghost. He came up in battle rap, and when he heard Ripped Open, he wanted to try his hand at written recordings. But that's a story for another time. Also, side note to the side note, Rugrat X took place in outer space. It would be so funny to me if Rugrat Y took place underground with the mole people.
I don't know. I just have this fascination with mole people, like coming up from underneath the ground. And I often think, like, what would be scarier? If that happened, like mole people coming from underneath the ground, or if mole people started falling from the sky. Like, where where would they come from? And what would happen once they got on Earth? Would they, like, go splat? Or would they, like, just get up and do their mole people thing? But what is a mole people thing? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
I stayed with my mom for a few weeks in Florida over the summer of 2014. When I visit for an extended period, I help her out at work, inside of a little tiki hut on the beach. I was chilling in my hut one morning before we opened the beach, and I texted my friend Douglas, aka Prophet Ghost, about this idea I had for my next project. I was pretty down on myself creatively at the time because I considered Rugrat X as a creative misstep. So I was having trouble coming up with ideas or even inspiration to make music at all. The idea that came to me that morning was for this song called Inner Demons, where I rap as myself and Douglas raps as the demon in my head. He was pretty psyched about the idea, so when I got back to town, we made Inner Demons, and thus my next album was officially underway. The making of Inner Demons was fun because we'd always wanted to make a track where we rap back and forth. So I would write a line and then Douglas would write a line and then I would go and then he would go. And we did it for the entire song until we had a complete story and a complete vision. And that's what we went with. And that was the first song completed for my Underachiever album. I decided to title my album Underachiever and Proud of It because I resonated greatly with that episode of The Simpsons, Bart Gets an F, in which Bart is threatened to repeat the fourth grade if he doesn't improve his grades. In the episode, the school psychiatrist says,
As shameful and as emotionally crippling as it may be, I'm afraid my recommendation is for Bart Simpson to repeat the fourth grade.
What?
I was struggling with school myself at the time, so the way Bart tried really hard to get better grades against all odds, and still didn't really do all that well, it resonated with me, to say the least. It teaches the lesson that if you're honest with yourself and put in the effort, even though you might not be perfect, you've gained something that you did. You did that, and that's something to be proud of. That's the mindset I took going into making my Underachiever album. Underachiever is very significant to me because, to this day, I still consider it to be my best album, my best body of work. And believe me when I say I pulled from every creative corner of my mind to make it. Releasing in October 2015, and as happy as I was with how it turned out, Underachiever would be the last project I'd put out for the next 5 years. A super silly series of personal events sidelined a lot of things for a while. So every creative endeavor my mind conjured had to be put on hold until I had the mental capacity to actually sit down and wrap my head around making a project again. Skipping over that personal business, I got to a place where I felt Rugrat needed to continue. The urge was urging, and the desire was desiring. I made a song called Broken Wings on a Butterfly in February 2020. And that was the first song I officially made for my next album, Exhale. The next song I made ended up being released that July. A song that was inspired by the Linkin Park song, Heavy. I felt my creative energy return. And no matter what is happening in my life, if I'm in the mental space to create, it's like a second life source for me. I get revitalized. Very much like I'm drinking energy water. Energy water, vitamin water. Wow. Energy water, though, that's like a thing. Like, water is the source of all energy, I think. I don't know. Get off my back. I'm just a podcast guy. I'm just a dude sitting in a treehouse. Okay, back to the topic. I was listening to Heavy, and it was very easy to relate my own circumstances to the lyrics in that song when I thought about the past few years. I thought about how far I'd come since then, and it made me want to write a song that was the opposite of heavy. That's when the idea for Weightless was born. Admittedly, the Exhale album was very hard to make. Not because I wasn't able to make the music, it's just that the Exhale album was always meant to mark the mental journey that I'd taken over the last few years. It was supposed to explain my disappearance. It was to mark my victory and to throw an exclamation point on the fact that I'm back, and I never want to feel that way again. I originally thought of Exhale in 2017. I knew since then it'd be my next ambition. But getting there meant making songs about my experiences. And that meant writing about it extensively. And that meant reaching deep down into my feelings, into my emotional pool, and pull them out and like go over them thoroughly and talk about them and thinking about them and recording them. And yeah, it was kind of draining. I was going to do it, but I couldn't do it all at once. I broke up the Exhale sessions by continuing my Demon Llama trilogy and finally making the part 2, which became Princess Potato. I made that entire record in 5 days. I gathered the beats and wrote and recorded everything all at once and chaotically put it out in October of 2020. 5 years almost to the day of the release of Underachiever. It was a giant step up from Demon Llama, the album I made 9 years prior. But that wasn't important. What was important was I finally broke free of myself and made something. And I was proud. I even got a feature from rap legend Jesse Dangerously and sold him some warm lemonade. I remember tweeting him, I said, "Would you want to play the part of a disgruntled customer at a lemonade stand and make a song about it with me?" He responded, "It was a role I was meant to play." I was worried I wasn't going to get the verse in time, though, for my planned release. So Prophet Ghost came through and recorded a verse for Warm Lemonade just in case I didn't hear from Jesse in time. And as fate would have it, Jesse's verse appeared in my inbox the day I released Princess Potato on October 2nd. 1 day before my planned release. I got a little excited and jumped the gun and released it a day early, but you know, it happens sometimes. I was just excited and wanted to put it out, to be honest. That next summer, in 2021, I had another burst of inspiration after some successful therapy sessions and made the 3-song EP 478. Side note, 478 is actually a breathing technique that's meant to help panic attacks. So if you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and breathe through your nose for 8 seconds. Just do that on a little loop, and it should help calm you down if you're feeling any kind of like anxiety, stress, panic attack type situation. I'm making the chef's kiss, mwah. This EP marked the second break I took from Exhale. The highlight here was Motorbike, a song I made in which I tell the true story of my experience seeing an electric scooter for the first time and reflecting on what was happening around me. Exhale has some of the realest, most exposed personal content I've ever said out loud that's not just at home in my own private journal. I got to work with Upwards, Spence the Prince, Prophet Ghost again while making Exhale, and that felt like getting the band back together like in the beginning days. That was really nice. Those guys are family, so shout out to all of them. Right now, I'm working on the Be Safe playlist, which the idea behind that is by releasing songs one at a time, each one gets maximum exposure. When I release an album, even though I put so much time in every single song, people pick and pay attention to maybe 3 or 4 songs that they like, and usually they ignore the rest. That's just kind of what happens with albums, you know. It's all about singles. It's not really an album world anymore. It's the curse of the album in this day and age. So the Be Safe playlist is largely an experiment. There will definitely be more Rugrat albums in the future. I'm just having fun creating different things right now, and that includes this podcast. The Final Shirt album is a given, as it's been the planned title of the final project in the Demon Llama trilogy for a long time. These albums are meant to be based on the lighter side of hip-hop and are more inspired by the nerdcore genre rather than traditional type of hip-hop that you're used to hearing. I have big plans for Final Shirt too. Demon Llama and Princess Potato had 5 songs each, but I'll be making Final Shirt full length, like 10 to 12 songs. And I want to get an epic feature or 2. I won't reveal anything just yet, but hopefully things work out in my favor. A trilogy more than a decade old deserves an epic finish.
Epic finish.
Aside from that, I'm still swirling around ideas for the Exhale follow-up. That's another reason I'm making the Be Safe playlist. I'm using it as a space to try new things out. New techniques, flows, types of beats, etc. For example, I helped produce the next song I'm releasing. I haven't done that since the song Proud of Me on Underachiever. So in theory, I should be more than ready to bring something fresh and exciting to a new Rugrat album when the time is right. Here's something random and exclusive for you all. I don't know when it'll be, not for a long while for sure, but the very last Rugrat album will be titled Rugrat Forever. I just think it fits. It's almost poetic. In 2010, the idea of Rugrat was just that, an idea. Now, in 2023, 13 years later, Rugrat is still very much my little baby. But if it all ended today, there'd be so much for me to be proud of. That's all I have in terms of story for now. But trust when I say that the Rugrat story is far from over. And you'll get updates and more about it all as it happens here in my spooky treehouse. Before we leave the treehouse, actually, hold on.
Let me get closer to the microphone and set the mood a little bit. Before we leave the treehouse, or, conclude the podcast, we must respect the spooky spirits that surround us by giving them an offering in the form of a haiku.
Story of Rugrat. No one can do it better. Here in my treehouse.